Welcome to Jian Batra's 15-minute FPL podcast. This is the Game Week 20 edition. We've got one game week left before the festive period. The really busy period of the season ends. So obviously going to try and end it off on a strong note and then going into a pretty slow January before ramping up in February again. So first, I'm just going to take you on a little detour to my team. And yeah, as I say, good week to have a bad week. Not great across the board. Few things. I'll just kind of quickly go through it. With the doggy, I think I wasn't expecting too much anyway. I knew that Brighton certainly had a goal in them. I think given that Pedro Porro got 5 points at the end for an assist where he didn't have too much attacking threat in the game and he conceded 4 goals, and doggy probably had the better chances to get the assist from the balls he was putting in at the end. It was a little bit tough to take, but you know, those happen. Then you've got the Saliba and Gabriel wipe out, and you've got them both conceded twice, so they only get 1 point. That's again very frustrating, and to have them blanked again when it's not really their fault again is quite frustrating. Again, another error from Zinchenko, in my opinion. I don't think he should be really getting involved when it's the first man there, but you know, these things happen. Saka again, obviously there'll be a lot of results orientated bias around him, how he should be doing better, etc., etc. But he's been playing quite well, to be fair, and he's been very close to returning numerous times now, so I'm sure the points will come, and there's no real need to take him out. Like, look at, for example, the money that we have available, and you look at the mids we have available, and given the current landscape of the game, which I'm going to touch on later, there really is no need. So I'd keep him there. Salah captain fail. I mean, everyone pretty much captained him, so it's not the end of the world. You expect him to do far better at Burnley, and he was pretty unlucky to walk. That happens. Son, again, I think very high ownership, very low captaincy rate. Whatever he got, it was cool. Watkins, I'm not too surprised that I thought Man United would actually win the game beforehand. So I'm not too bothered with his 2 points. Again, everyone owns him. So really, who cares? Very minimal gains in ranks. Turns. Blanky, good. Should have got another, I think, from his performance, but with how well he's treating me. The two disappointments for me, really, outside of the Arsenal defence, were Bruno and Nunes. Nunes obviously had a cracking start to the game, and he was really high up on the bonus point system as well. I think he created a few big chances for Salah there. And about the first 10 minutes, and really, Liverpool should have scored a second with him involved early on, and then probably cruised through, or maybe completely destroyed Burnley. But, you know, these things happen again, and Bruno, top performance. Really, really good performance. The assist so many times, but I'm really happy to own him. I know people will have this stigma around Man United, but I think now that McTominay has been dropped, and I think that's going to continue with Bruno in this almost 10-like role, I think great on the bonus system, and he'll get returns and going to eventually lead to me accumulating points. I'm very happy with him. And if you would like to see your team, and who the AI is suggesting, which the AI is doing very well at suggesting this year, fantastic success rate and doing very well with its own team, then you get 30 days free. The deal is still running, and there's 30% off, and I highly encourage you to take it. Well, at whatever tier, there's such good benefits, and to be quite frank, at the cheaper tiers, it is really cheap for what you're getting. So now, moving on to one of the biggest topics of the game week, if not the biggest, and that is captaincy. Now, before I get on to the 4 other options who are very popular, I'd just like to talk about Bowen briefly. He would be my differential pick in a week where there isn't really a standout option. And if you wanted to go there, then I think it's viable. The only thing I'd say with him is, whilst it's a good matchup for him, Estepinion's back, so I think that increases the potential of Brighton minimizing the effects of West Ham's attack. That's one. Second of all, he's not particularly explosive. He's only had a double-digit haul once this season, and I think with the captaincy option, you really want someone who's going to push that ceiling and whose ceiling is quite accessible to them. And I'm not sure Bowen, at the moment, as well as he's playing, has that right now. So personally, I would just steer away until maybe you get penalties for sure, or maybe a greater proportion of set. Obviously, we'll see what happens when Kudus goes, whether he continues to play at 9. If he does, then he becomes a stellar option. We'll talk about that down the line. I think just for this week, when you want a captain option, you want someone a bit more explosive. Brighton are just coming off a good win, so a bit of form there as well. Then we go on to the 4 other options. Now, I quite like Watkins for this week in comparison to other weeks where he's been more popular and I haven't been as bullish. This week I am also. If Burnley are going to go away to Villa, they are likely to play in the same manner they did at home to Liverpool. At Liverpool, they showed them very little respect. They showed a lot of courage. and they were willing to play out the back. They were willing to absorb Liverpool's press. They were fine with it. When Liverpool were pressing with almost 7 men at one point, they were fine to engage with that and try and play through it. But I think they're going to do that if Aston Villa give them the opportunity to. They most certainly will. Watkins isn't the Watkins that he used to be. Under Emery, he's far less of a channel runner, far more orientated to the center of the pitch, and I think that's good when you're pressing and you're trying to get the ball on transition to Watkins as your captaincy option. It's not really going to be him winning it; it's going to be others winning it and then them feeding him. The best example I can give you of this is when Son went away to Burnley. Funny enough, game week 3, and on transition they really hurt Burnley. So I think Watkins to do almost a similar job to what Son did. So in that sense, I really like him. He's not as prolific as some of the other men on the screen, particularly the man in the middle and the man on the left of him on our screen. But in a fixture like this, where I think the volume of opportunity will be so high, and Villa coming off a loss as well, I'm sure they want to get back on track, given Arsenal drop points as well. Nice little opportunity to close out the break. And also Pau Torres will be back to help with their build-up, so I think things will be just a bit more secure. I'm bullish on Watkins. On the contrary, I really don't like the Alvarez hunt for captaincy. I don't like him as an option really as well, which we're going to come on to. But with him playing Sheffield United, they've actually been pretty decent against the bigger sides. They've had a bit of luck on the way for sure, but they've been managed to do very well in crowding out those central areas. And I don't think he's, again, a bit like Watkins, maybe to a slightly better extent. He's not super prolific again. And with that seeding, I'd say not really being there. Now, he has so many avenues to points. I'd define him as a high floor, medium seeding asset. I think with City's point spread often being so wide, Foden, Silva, even Grealish is now starting to, I think, look a bit more lively in and around the box. I don't trust Alvarez as much with the armband. I don't think it's a bad option, but I think given how Sheffield United have set up in the past, I think maybe like midfielders might actually have a bit more of a say, even the wingers, exploiting him through that manner. I think Alvarez maybe almost used as a decoy or a facilitator, probably a better word. That leaves us with 2 options, but Watkins is still on the radar. One thing I don't like about Son for this week, and it's quite a niche point, is that Oliver Skip might not play. And when Højbjerg plays at the 6, I feel like Spurs are a lot less fluid. I think he isn't as... His profile doesn't suit Postecoglou's system anywhere near as well as Basuma's does. I was at the Spurs game against Everton, and I saw how Oliver Skip was receiving the ball. He's far more agile. I think the way he turns and the way he almost looks up is far better. I think Højbjerg is a bit more stagnant, right? And having Oliver Skip at 6 almost just has a transformative effect on the whole team as compared to Højbjerg. Now, Højbjerg certainly got his advantages. I think like his distribution of balls over a longer range is better. I think he probably a bit more physical in terms of strength, so that can help on transition at times. But then you'd argue Oliver Skip has the speed. I think in a Postecoglou system, that's more useful. But I think with Skip likely to be out and Højbjerg to play 6 again, that lack of fluidity, that's not good for Spurs, especially against the Bournemouth side, who have been very, very good at limiting chances, especially in central areas. So for me, that's one thing. The other thing is it's quite a turnaround between when Spurs play away at Brighton and then back home to Bournemouth, whereas Bournemouth will be better rested. So that's another thing to consider. And obviously they've had a very intense evening. Salah for me is probably the best option alongside Watkins. I will be going for one of them. Newcastle just look fatigued at the moment. I think there's not really too many issues with them apart from the fact that they look fatigued and a lot of mistakes are offset from that. The only negative thing that I don't like about Salah this week is that he's probably playing against Livramento, a left back. At least I'd assume so, considering he's rested and how good a 1v1 defender he is. And it's not a great matchup for him. I also don't think Harvey Elliott's going to start again, which again isn't really good for Salah. But what I'm going with here is merely form of Newcastle, how good Salah is at Anfield, and the ceiling. And I think, look, you've got penalties in 90 minutes, and I don't really want to overcomplicate this too much this week because I don't think there's huge edge. I think there's an edge on not going Son because of Oliver Skip. I think there's an edge maybe on not going Alvarez because of how Sheffield United set up. But on Salah, I think it's very much a mundane scenario. I think not too much to sway it either way. So I would personally just go with one of Salah or Watkins. Who's the best? I haven't quite decided yet, but I'm almost discount the other two stuff. Moving on to the wild card, because there are going to be a handful of people who need to use it this week because the deadline for that's running out. And this is what I've come up with. Now, it's quite different to a lot of people's wildcards from what I've seen, but hear me out. I think Jason Steele provides you with a really nice option because he's very cheap, right? He's a goalkeeper that's going to play occasionally, and when he doesn't, it's not like he's going to get subbed on, right? And the fixtures over the long run are really good. So when Raya has a bad game, you can just play Steele. And if Steele doesn't play, then so be it. You get Raya from one of the best defensive units. But when Steele does play in that good fixture, then great. He's also very cheap. Or you could keep Dubravka in there, but it blocks a Newcastle spot for later, which is something that I thought about. So I actually really like the Steele Raya combination. Raya I've got in there ahead of Saliba for the price difference, and so that I can have Estepinian, because I think on the wildcard he should be a lock. The fixture run over the long term is so good. His volume of attacking returns and the volume of attacking actions that he performs in the game is magnificent. You only need to see the goal today to see what he's capable of, and you really always want those high upside defenders and players in FPL. So that's great. Gabriel, look, I've spoken about my admiration for the Arsenal defense. He's got the opportunity to score from set pieces. The fixtures are good in the short/medium term. So yeah, for me, I'm all for that. Trent is a creative machine, unbelievable on the bonus point system, and I think when you've got the money, you may as well spend it here. Gusto and Concert are just they work really nicely. Gusto's super cheap and works in the short/medium term, and then Concert works over a slightly longer term, and when you need him, he can play. Like when other people have worse fixtures, you can fit him in. So in that sense, I really like him there. I'll go on to the front three first. I've excluded Haaland because I don't actually think I'm going to come on to Haaland. I don't think he's going to come back for game week 21. Even if he does, it's Newcastle away. It's really the end of the world. I think game week 22, when you have 2 free transfers with this team, is far more advantageous to have him. And then I think the front line practically picks itself. I know people are going to speak about Alvarez and the next section's on City, so we can touch on it there. But yeah, for me, this front three with Nunez's expected minutes increasing when Salah goes, they'll definitely need someone, a greater goal scorer, let's say. The fixture's actually pretty good. I really like the fixtures from a stylistic perspective for Nunez. Solanke's in the form of his life, and Watkins just has a really good run over the long term and super secure. So I think the front three there don't really need too much messing about with. I think when we see a bit more from Nkunku, we can go there. But until now, Palmer should be sufficient cover. Bowen, I've already spoken about my admiration of. He's one of the best assets, especially when Salah and Son go to the Asia Cup and AFCON. Saka, spoken about again. Now, the reason I've got Salah in here is you can, if you're not going to go Haaland, then you may as well have Salah for 1 week, especially if you're thinking about captaining him. Because even if you don't end up captaining him, right, it's 1 free transfer extra, but a player you really want for this week in a week where there's not too many amazing options, especially not the ceiling that he has. So I'd keep him, and then the idea here is in game week 22 when City's run really gets good to sell Salah and then sell Watkins. For me at the moment to get Haaland, you can sell Nunes as one, and then Haaland, or basically any other midfield asset you would like under 7.8 million, I believe it was. This team still has some money spare in the bank, it's about 0.2. My team value is at 104.5 for reference. Palmer, a fantastic facilitator, great expected minutes, decent ceiling with penalties, cheap, good fixtures. Bruno is the one that I know a lot of people aren't going to like, but as I explained earlier, if he's going to play 10, he's going to be an asset who starts to have his high floor again. And in a sea where there's not too many great options, with a really good fixture run and an ever-improving United attack is the way I see it, I think it's a very, very nice differential to have. So I said I would speak about City, so here we are. Look, I don't think Haaland's going to be back for game week 21, given Pep's comments. I think it's also unnecessary to risk him. Like a long-term injury when you can just rest him for 1 extra game, because then obviously you get the big break in January, right? It's almost like 2 sets of breaks after game week 20. So I think game week 22 he's going to be ready to go. The reason I don't like Foden Alvarez is, one, I don't like Alvarez because when Haaland comes back and when De Bruyne comes back, the expected minutes are going to reduce for both of them. But also because his ceiling, as he's displayed, it hasn't really been there. Now, he's been very consistent, but I argue the likes of Nunes, the volume of chances he accused, even Watkins as well, they have higher ceilings, and they've showcased that this year to an extent. Like Watkins definitely has, Nunes less so, but I think with the volume of chances, like I said, more so than Alvarez. Foden, I'm more inclined to go to. I think with De Bruyne coming back eventually, the expected minutes reduce slightly. It's just that he's never really been an output machine, and that for FPL you probably want to lean on that. He's never been unbelievable on the bonus point system, and in FPL you probably want to lean on that. So that's basically why I'm fading these two. Could they hurt me in game week 20 against Sheffield United? For sure, and you could kind of go for a punt if you so wish. But I think it's kind of unnecessary to use a transfer here. I feel like it's quite inefficient when you look at down the line. I have Bruno here, but I guess I spoke about him in the wildcard. But I really do think he's one of those differentials that is going to come good pretty soon. And I would at least think about it with an open mind, because if you watch how they played almost the entire, or how he played the entire game against Aston Villa, there are certainly returns to be had against other sides there when they have more of the ball in like higher positions. It was a very transition based game. That one, Villa didn't really try and dominate. They were happy to almost be specialists in dueling regularly and kind of catch United on transition. They have a very good build-up pattern on their right. They've exploited Arsenal with, and they nearly exploited United with. That's something that they've definitely worked on. Thus, like, you'll have games where Bruno won't have to do that, and he'll have a lot more of the ball in more advanced regions. We spoke about Estepinian, but I kind of just wanted to reiterate that these guys can be really, really good differentials this week and from now on. And then with Trent's slightly different. I don't actually think he's essential if you don't have a wild. I think you can get away with it going like double Arsenal defense, Porro, Gusto as an example. The fixtures aren't that easy. Like, Newcastle definitely have a goal in them. So do Bournemouth when he goes away to them. So do Chelsea, and so do Arsenal, right? And then the run gets really good. Liverpool always susceptible to conceding a few big chances. So I don't think he's essential by any means, but a good asset to own. I just wouldn't rip your team. And that concludes it. So if you could please like and subscribe, we would really appreciate that. Download the app and make sure to follow Fantasy Football Hub and myself at FPL_Jian Batra on Twitter. If you could rate the podcast and leave a comment, that would be much appreciated. And again, there is 30 days free. Fantastic late Christmas gift for those of you who Santa wasn't too nice to. And you get 30% off as well. Really worth the money, especially at quite a cheap price. I will see you after the break, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and hope you have a very good game week in the next 2 weeks. Goodbye.